Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. In this video, we're going to do another installment of my 49ers 2023 NFL mock draft. We're doing all 7 rounds, even though we don't have a first or second round pick. But either way, there is a lot to talk about in this video, so let's not waste any time, guys. Let's jump right in. And as I mentioned, the 49ers do not have a first round pick because of the trade up for Trey Lance. We don't have a second round pick because of the trade with Carolina for Christian McCaffrey. We don't have our own third round pick also because of that trade with Carolina. But the 49ers, I project, will have 3 third round compensatory picks. The first one is going to be coming due to the hirings of Robert Saleh and Martin Mayhew a number of years ago. The second one will be Mike McDaniel being hired by the Miami Dolphins. And the third one is the one that I'm really projecting here, is that I do think that DeMeco Ryans will get a head coaching job somewhere, which would result in the Niners getting another third round pick. So with these 3 third round picks, let's kick it off here. Pick number 100 overall. I'm going to take cornerback Julius Brents, cornerback out of Kansas State, 6'4", 204. He's a senior. Great, amazing size. This guy is really physical. One of those prototypical guys that you'd like to see, and someone who reminds me quite a bit of a guy I liked a lot last year, which was Martin Emerson Jr. So I think that this is a guy who can come in, maybe doesn't start his first year, probably going to compete in a backup role at cornerback, and he's someone who, again, very physical, great system fit for the zone cover scheme. The one issue and the reason why he would fall so much is that he just doesn't have that elite athleticism. He's not going to be running like a 4.4 40 or anything like that. However, I do think that for what we typically ask cornerbacks to do, I do think that he would be a good fit here in San Francisco. And let's not forget that Emmanuel Moseley coming off an injury and is also a free agent. So that's something to think about too in terms of needs for the 49ers. Now, when I look at the next third round comp pick, which I project to be pick number 102 overall, I'm actually going to be taking an offensive tackle here. We're going to go with Tyler Steen, the offensive tackle out of Alabama, 6'5", 315, also a senior. He's played a lot of college ball at the best level in college in the SEC. Now, when you look at him, Tyler Steen, very athletic, great hands. Overall technique, though, does need a little bit of work. To me, he's a guy who would fit really well at the right tackle position should Mike McGlinchey leave somewhere in free agency. I know a lot of people want to move on from McGlinchey. You know, I have kind of mixed feelings about that, but I think that we could potentially upgrade, and I think Tyler Steen could be the guy who can come in, fits what we want to do, and does need some refinement, so that's why he drops to the 3rd round. Now, with our third and final 3rd round compensatory pick, that's a whole lot of threes right there. I'm going to go with Will McDonald IV, and that's an edge player out of Iowa State, 6'4", 245 senior. Now, here's a guy who I do think fits really well with what we do. I think he reminds me a little bit of Drake Jackson, who we took in the 2nd round last year. So you might be thinking, well, why would we take another guy here then? Well, a lot of our defensive ends are going to be free agents at the end of this season. Under contract for next year, we just have Nick Bosa and Drake Jackson, and that's it. Now, to me, I think you could bring in a Will McDonald IV, and then you potentially bring back maybe like a Kerry Hyder, a Jordan Willis, and you maybe, Menahu, someone like that, so you get that nice blend of size and speed at the defensive end position. But let's talk a bit more about McDonald. Yes, speed, high motor guy, and really ideal size for what we need to do. Now, the thing is, he's pretty raw coming out of college. He does need a lot of work in his technique, but luckily we have arguably the best in the business to help him out with that in Chris Kasarik, and I think he's someone who, give him a couple of years, could be that like 7-8 kind of sack guy, and really part of that rotation that we like to run at the edge position. Now, coming up next, guys, I'm going to actually have my 2 5th round picks coming up. The 49ers do not pick in the 4th round of this upcoming draft. In round 5, pick 163 overall, I have the 49ers projected to take Zach Pickens, the defensive tackle out of South Carolina, 6'4", 305. He is a senior, and that's something that you're going to see pretty much throughout this entire videos, me going for senior players. Now, with Pickens, looking at where he went to school, of course, the same school as Javon Kinlaw. I liked Kinlaw quite a bit coming out of South Carolina, but he just hasn't proven to be able to stay healthy in his now 3rd year in San Francisco. So I think that we do need some depth at the defensive tackle position. We see this year that we've had to bring out guys basically off the street. We've had to claim guys off other teams' practice squads just to be able to field some players. So I want to get some depth here. Now, when I look at Pickens, good length, really, really good quickness too. And that's what you love to see. He's a guy who I think with maybe a year or two of development, with a year or two of seasoning, could really develop into an effective player. The one thing which I think where he lacks is sometimes in terms of play recognition, which then mitigates his quickness because he's thinking too much as opposed to just making the play happen. So I think if he can improve that, play faster, and use his quickness and agility, then I think he could turn into potentially a DJ Jones type player who the 49ers did draft in the 6th round a number of years ago. Now with our 2nd, 5th round pick, and that would be a compensatory pick via DJ Jones signing with the Denver Broncos, I have the 49ers taking another player from Alabama. It's going to be tight end Cameron Latu. So when you look at Latu, 6'5", 244, a senior, and we're going to see that the whole video. So when I think of Latu, I think of a couple of players. I think of Levine Toilolo, who he brought in Shanahan's 1st year, and I think of Charlie Woerner, but I believe that Latu can be more effective than those guys. Latu, very good blocker, asked to do a lot of different things for Alabama, for the Crimson Tide, in terms of lines up in very much like a lot of different positions, so he's versatile. He also did set Alabama's record for 8 touchdowns in a year ago, so he's someone who can really do a good job in the red zone, effective catching the ball. So one of the things then you might ask is, well, why is he in the 5th round? He's just really not that athletic. He's not the kind of guy like George Kittle who, if you get him the ball, he's going to basically take it to the house. He's a guy where, he reminds me basically of, I think, a better version of what we expected Charlie Woerner to do. Plus, I do think we'll need some depth at tight end. Dwelly's on a 1-year deal, and so is Tyler Kroft. And Charlie Woerner, we'll see if he's able to stick around on the roster. Now, coming up next, guys, I'm going to have my 6th round pick. In the 6th round, I'm going to have the 49ers taking TJ Bass, interior offensive lineman out of Oregon. He's 6'5", 318, and a senior. Now, to me, what I really like about this guy is that he's very versatile as well, and that's a huge thing in terms of when you have to select only 53 players for your roster, is having that versatility to play multiple positions. Kind of similar to like a Nick Zakelj, who we drafted last year, but he's played at right guard, he's played at left guard, he even played 8 games at left tackle, did TJ Bass. So I think he's someone who could ultimately and potentially be a long-term solution at center. Really, really high IQ. The one thing which he does tend to struggle a little bit with are those speed rushers. So you definitely, you wouldn't ideally want him out there on the edge at tackle, but I think in terms of a center, playing beside, really athletic guys like Burford, like Banks, and I think he could really excel down the road, maybe sits a year behind Brendel, and they could be a good depth piece down the road for the offensive line. And then coming up next, guys, I'm going to have our final 2 picks. They're both going to be in the 7th round. In the 7th round, I do have us taking 2 players. We have 2 projected picks there. The first one is going to be Trey Dean III, safety out of Florida, 6'3", 207, a senior. Another guy who's played a lot of ball in the SEC and just done a really solid job in his career there. Now, the one thing which, when I think about Trey Dean, is that he's quite versatile. He's played some cornerback, played some safety, and I think to me, he could be a long-term backup option to a Talanoa Hufanga. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not going to run a 4.340, 4.440. He's not our future free safety type guy, but I think in the 7th round, he could be really good depth in the position. Also, he does have that versatility where he's played cornerback before, so maybe is a much, could fit in terms of depth there, where, like, let's say if we have an injury at the slot corner position, he could play a little bit there. But here's the thing. So what I like about Trey Dean a lot is the fact that, yeah, he's really fluid. He's very quick. He's not super fast, but he's very quick, and he's really decisive in what he wants to do. The other thing, too, is that I think this would be a good move in terms of depth for the special teams. I think, he could actually learn a lot from a guy like George Odom. So really good depth pick here at safety. And then we're going to finish off the draft. 7th round, picked projected 243 overall, and it's going to be one of my guys here, and I think this will be my guy almost appearing in most of my mock drafts. It's going to be Ainias Smith, the wide receiver out of Texas A&M, 5'10", 190 pounds, a senior. He's coming off a pretty bad injury. He has some issues with drops, and he's really not the speed electric guy, but kind of like Deebo Samuel, dynamic with the ball in his hands, can make people miss tackles, lines up in a lot of different areas in terms of the offense for Texas A&M, can take the ball in the backfield, kind of like a Ray McLeod type guy, maybe with a little bit less speed, but someone who I do think that down the road could be an asset to the 49ers in terms of offensively. Just someone that, like, if you get him the ball in space, he can make things happen, and that's always a huge thing in the Kyle Shanahan offense. So Ainias Smith, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. And that's going to do it, guys, for my latest mock draft. I really do hope that you enjoyed a lot of these picks. Of course, I always love hearing all of your guys' thoughts on the picks that I do, and make your suggestions too for some players maybe I'm not familiar with. A gentle reminder that it's still very early in the mock draft and in the draft season. There's still a lot of things to be determined with regards to, the combine and the Senior Bowl and workouts and all those kind of things. And of course, trades that could happen. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And guys, it's going to be a really busy weekend here at Shifty's 49ers Talk. We are going to be streaming a whole bunch of games. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope you guys will be around for that. But I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to say 2 things before I go. The butt counts, and I'm going to catch you guys on the flip side.